Good afternoon. My name is Kathleen Brown, and I call this administrative informal and workshop session to order. Madam Clerk, would you please announce the roll?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Present in the school board chamber are Chair Brown, Mr. Culpepper, Ms. Felton, Dr. Green, Ms. Melnick, and Ms. Rogers.
Thank you. Mr. Cummings is delayed. His wife had some car troubles. He told me I could say that. And so as soon as he's done assisting her, he will be on the way. Ms. Dwyer is running a few minutes behind, and also is Vice Chair Weems. Mr. Callen has another obligation today, and he will be delayed if he can make it at all. Okay, and we are now on to the administrative matters and reports. And I want to turn it over to Dr. Robertson briefly so we can talk about the retreat agenda.
Yes, I emailed out a draft last week of the retreat agenda for everyone to review. I didn't know if you had any thoughts about anything we wanted to add, anything that was missing. The time to get that retreat agenda together is soon so that my team can ensure they're ready for those topics. I haven't received anything back from anyone.
Okay, and so we'll bring that to the board in admin matters next week as well. We'll just have that dropped out here again.
Okay.
So with that, Ms. Melnick.
So while I participated in last month's meeting, I was Zoom, and I was not sitting in this seat. And I would have said this last time, but I'm going to say it right now. Last week was Teacher Appreciation Week, and I just wanted to send out my heartfelt appreciation for all of our teachers who show up every day for our students, who love our students, some of whom are in their classrooms before I open my eyes and are still doing work when I before I open my eyes. If I close my eyes at night, they're still working. I just want them all to know that you are loved, you are appreciated, and I am truly grateful for everything you do for our students every single day.
Thank you. Ms. Felton?
Thank you, Chair Brown. Appreciate that. Colleagues and listening public and audience, as we progress through the month of May, I would like to highlight several key observances that honor our history and promote collective wellness. I'd like to promote and recognize Mental Health Awareness Month, a time to focus on mental health issues and promote wellness for all. Asian American and Pacific Islanders Heritage Month, celebrating the immense contribution of Asian American and Pacific Islanders. Jewish Heritage Month, recognizing the rich history and culture of Jewish America. Military Appreciation Month, honoring military personnel and their families, including observance like Loyalty Day and Military Spouse Appreciation Day. And most of all, Teachers Appreciation Week, May 4th through the 8th, a dedicated time to show our educators that they are valued and deserving of our support. And Friday, I attended at least 5 schools. It was awesome, running around from school to school and being with the teachers, and they were well celebrated by the students and the administration as well. We also reflect on a pivotal moment in our history. More than 70 plus years ago, on May 17th, 1954, the United States Supreme Court delivered its landmark unanimous decision in Brown versus Board of Education. The ruling establishing that racial segregation in public schools violated the Equal Protection Clause of the 14th Amendment. We remember the plaintiff Linda Carroll Brown, born 1943. She died deceased in 2018, whose courage sparked a prolonged struggle for civil rights and eventually transformed our educational system. As Kansas Governor Jeff Collier noted, Linda Brown's life served as a reminder that by serving our community, we can truly change the world. Thank you, and I appreciate the time, Chair.
Thank you. Ms. Rogers?
Thank you. I also want to take the opportunity to acknowledge recognitions and celebrations within our community. This has been a year of my doing this, so I would also encourage anybody who wants to communicate with me. We can not do this twice. Haitian Heritage Month honors the rich culture, history, and contributions of Haitians globally, featuring art, food, and music. It highlights the resilience of Haitian community, with the Haitian Flag Day serving as the centerpiece of the celebration. Indian Heritage Month, which focuses on history, culture, and contributions of Indian Americans and features cultural events, art exhibitions, musical performances to honor the diverse traditions of India's states. The community participates by supporting Indian-owned businesses, attending community parades, and learning about Indian history. Jewish American Heritage Month, which honors the more than 360-year history dating back to 1654. It highlights the contributions and achievements of Jewish Americans to the nation's culture, society, and history. Established by a presidential proclamation in 2006, the month highlights the diverse stories of American Jews, fostering education to counter anti-Semitism. National Asian American Pacific Islanders Heritage Month recognizes history, culture, and significant contributions of Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders who have enriched America's history and are instrumental to America's future success. It commemorates the first Japanese immigrant arrival in May of 1843 and commemorates the community's impact on American science, art, diplomacy, labor, and history. Mental Health Awareness Month, which is a time to fight stigma, provide support, and educate the community on mental health. This is an annual campaign founded in 1949 to highlight that mental health is a crucial success for overall well-being and encourages people to seek help for conditions like anxiety and depression. It encourages people to share their own stories, break the silence, and build a community of support. From May 4th to May 8th, the community celebrated Teacher Appreciation Week, which recognizes educators' contributions to our students and our community. Students honored their teachers with gifts, special events, and school activities. On May 1st, the community celebrated School Lunch Hero Day, which honors our nutrition professionals and their dedication to nourishing our students, managing food allergies, and supporting students' education by making sure our students are fed. On May 5th, the community celebrated Cinco de Mayo, which commemorates the Mexican Army's victory over France at the Battle of Puebla. It became a popular celebration in the United States in 1863 in California as a form of resistance to France for their interference in the American Civil War. On May 6th, the community celebrated School Nurse Day to honor the specialized care, health advocacy, and safety school nurses provide to our community. This day recognizes the crucial role nurses play in supporting our students' health and academic performance. On May 18th, the community will celebrate National Speech Pathologists Day, which recognizes the crucial work of SLPs in treating communication, language, and swallowing disorders. It honors SLPs who work in our schools, hospitals, and clinics to help individuals improve their ability to connect and communicate with the rest of the community. On May 21st, the community will acknowledge World Day of Cultural Diversity and Dialogue and Development, which highlights the importance of intercultural dialogue, peace, and sustainable development, encouraging global understanding and respect for diversity. It promotes the need to bridge the gap between cultures to ensure peaceful coexistence and social cohesion. And finally, on May 25th, the community will recognize Memorial Day, which honors the U.S. military personnel who have died while serving in our country. It's a time for visiting graves of those who have fallen in service, and volunteers will place American flags at the graves of national cemeteries, and families will spend time with loved ones to remember their fallen heroes. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Green?
Thank you. No recognitions. Madam Chair, I have a request, if I may, that may help with some of the recognitions. Earlier this week, we received an email from a parent with regards to how we put things on the website recognizing certain months, days, etc. And in this case, after her email, we ensured that our Jewish community was recognized this month. So I would like to make a request that possibly at the retreat or at another time, as you deem appropriate, that maybe a subcommittee of the board could be formed as to review what recognitions we can do and possibly even go back to some of the resolutions, because I remember a time when teachers were recognized. So I do respectfully ask that for your consideration. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. And we are now on to the Mercer update. And we welcome Crystal Pate, Chief Financial Officer, Linda Matkins, Director of Consolidated Benefits, and David, I'm sorry if I'm saying this wrong, Keogh, Senior Principal, Mercer.
Good afternoon, Chairwoman Brown, Vice Chairwoman Weems, school board members, Dr. Robertson. This afternoon's presentation provides the next quarterly update on the health plan, including updated claims experience through March 31st, 2026. We will also review projected employee rates and the relative impact. Again, I am joined by David Keogh, Principal with Mercer, who will lead most of today's presentation. Following his remarks, I will review the projected employee contributions and discuss the impact of these projections. And then at the conclusion, we'll be happy to take any questions you may have. And with that, I will turn that over to David.
Thank you very much, Crystal, and thank you all for having me here to provide an update on the health plan projections. On the agenda slide, you'll see we'll talk about the projection for both the calendar year, which is the health plan year, as well as the fiscal year. And then, as Crystal mentioned, we've got some rate exhibits that will show the contribution scenario for the 2027 year. So this exhibit will hopefully look familiar to you in that I'll point out a couple of minor changes along the way here, but this shows the projections for 26 and 27. The 2025 plan year is obviously complete. It's on there just for a frame of reference. So I'll focus on the 2026 column, and you can see there the gross cost is 126.0 million, which is a slight improvement, moving in the right direction based on improved claims experience from the update that I shared with you
Madam Chair.
all.
Sorry, do we have an electronic copy of this? I can't read this. It's tiny. I have this one. I was asking, is there an electronic one? I didn't see one in there. Did I miss it? It is in there? Okay, thank you.
So the projection of 126 million for the full year 2026 is a slight improvement. So as you'll recall, we want to use the most updated claims experience that we have available to us, and that is through March of 2026. And so the 2026 column there illustrates the projection for the balance of 2026. So you'll see the employer contributions are projected to be 103.0 million, employee contributions 17.5 million, for a total of a 120.5, and then there is projected to be a reliance on the health fund of 5.5 million, and that sums to the total projected cost of 126 million. And that 126 million represents about a 7.5% increase from the 2025 plan year. The health fund balance, you'll see as of March 31st, 2026 is 14.1 million, and we are anticipating a $9.8 million additional drawdown for the balance of the year, leaving the health fund balance at $4.3 million. So that is below the projected target, the desired target, which is shown on that row there, which is 2/12 of the annual cost, and it's $21 million. So the estimated balance at the end of the year represents about 20% of what we would desire. And so I would share with you again, the part of the function of that health fund balance is to help the plan withstand unfavorable experience and volatility as it occurs. And so in that sense, the health fund did its job, which was to help fund that experience. And we've talked about in some of our prior meetings the uptick in the trend over the last couple of periods. And so the health fund was there to absorb those costs. And then I'll make one note as to a change here is that we had previously had in the exhibit for 2026 a one-time infusion of 5.8 million, and we were advised to remove that line item. So if you reflect back to the prior presentation, you'll see that has an impact on the estimated health fund balance as well. So with for 2026, then with those contributions that are in place, employee and retiree contributions of 17.5 million. If you divide that by the total gross costs of 126 million, you'll see that the employee and retirees are paying approximately 14%, 13.9 to be specific, rounds to 14%. So if you'll just hang on to that figure, I'll reference that when I talk about 2027. So 2027, you'll see that the projected cost, total gross cost is $137.6 million. And what we've been advised to include here is a scenario that calls for a 10% increase to employee and retiree contributions. So we used our updated experience, which, as I mentioned, improved slightly, to make that projection for 2027. So we're at 137.6 million. Employer contributions, we were provided the figure of a budget employer rate of 121.1 million. And at the 10% illustrated employee retiree increase, that is expected to be 19.2 million. Which sums to 140.3, and that actually is would provide a contribution to the health fund. So that's a negative, formerly as a negative drawdown, which is a contribution. So you'll see a negative number there, and that reduces the liability from 140.3 to 137.6. So under this particular scenario, it is projected to make a slight contribution to the health fund over time, over 2027, based on this particular scenario. And so the balance at the beginning of 2027 is 4.3 million, which was the projected ending balance for 2026. And then the additional 2.6 million into the fund results in a projected health fund balance of 6.9 million expected as of 12/31/2027. So slight contribution increase to the health fund balance, and that means that it would cover approximately 30% of the desired target. So 2026 is at 20%. For 2027, under this particular scenario, it improved the coverage of the desired target health fund balance improves from 20% to 30%. And you can see the figures there. So I'd asked that I'd done the calculation as to the percentage of the total gross costs in 2026 that employees and retirees paid, and that was 13.9%. We'll round it to 14%. That same figure under this proposed scenario is it increases just a whisker from 13.9 to 13.95%. So under this scenario, the retirees and the employees would pay virtually the same proportion of the total projected gross costs.
If you could, I think we're talking about a different slide than the one that is shown on the display. So I'm on slide 4 on the display. Which slide are you referencing?
Yeah, that's.
Are we still on slide 4?
Yeah, we're still on. Yeah,
I just had some confusion up here as to whether or not we had.
Okay, yeah, I apologize. Yeah, we're still talking about this slide, so we're still in the plan.
Okay, just making sure.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yep. Yes, ma'am. And so with this projection methodology, we've got the details in the appendix, which we don't typically go through, but happy to do so if you all would like. But I'll just remind you that we incorporate some underwriting principles to do this projection work. So we use the word trend a lot, and I'll just refresh your memory as to that concept. There's a factor that we apply to the claims experience, and that's called a trend factor. And what that does is that allows us to project, using your experience, to project into the future and we adjust it by that trend factor on a per capita basis, and that will allow for increases in unit costs for healthcare services as well as increased utilization that is occurring. And so the factor for that is 9%, and then we've also incorporated 2% margin into that projection. Okay, so that's for the plan year. And then the next exhibit is the identical format, but it's for the fiscal year. So that obviously covers the period July through June. And again, we've got fiscal year 25 on there for reference. It's obviously complete. The fiscal year 26 is in the middle, and then fiscal year 2027 under this scenario where there's a 10% increase to employees and retirees. So the gross cost for the fiscal year 2026 is projected to be 121.8 million. And then the contributions are a blend of 2025 that occurred and 2026 that occurred. And those figures you'll see there are 102 million for the employer contributions, 14.2 for employee and retiree, which sums to 116.1. And then there was also, during this period, the reliance on the health fund is expected to be 5.7 million. And so that results in a health fund balance projected to be 11.3 million at the end of the fiscal year. So that takes the estimated 2.8 million subsequent drawdown over the course of between now and the end of June is taken off of the current balance of 14.1 million. And so when we look at fiscal year 2027, well, I guess I'll also remind you too is the primary difference between the plan year projection and the fiscal year projection is the fact that we are projecting further out into the future for the plan year. So the fiscal year is lower. There's some seasonality in there as well, but it's also, we're projecting further out into the future. So recall we had talked about adding for every month, it's about $800,000 additional that we're adding in to account for growth in expenditures out into the future. So since the fiscal year projection ends in June of 2026, the plan year ends in December of 2026, the plan year would be expected to be a higher figure. So for the fiscal year 2027, the health fund balance is expected to improve to 12.4 million. Again, we're using the exact same experience through March for both of these projections. The only thing that's different is the time period. And so that estimated health fund balance represents about 57% of the desired target amount. All right, so for the scenario, the 10% scenario that we've talked about here, this chart, and Crystal, as she mentioned, is going to go into some more detail on this, but this is how the annual costs break out between the employer and the employee. And then in the royal blue, the columns to the right for reference are the 2026 contributions. So you'll see, I won't read them by each tier, but they're broken out by plan and by tier. The annual contribution, and then the employee contribution increase is in those right two columns. So the 10% is the far right, that represents the percentage increase, and then the dollar amount on an annual basis you can see in that column there. So for example, employee only on the school's point of service plan, that would increase $126.59 on an annual basis. And again, Crystal will drill into that. So this is the actives exhibit. And the next page here is the same exhibit, same increase percentage, 10%. The dollars are a little bit different because the rates and contributions are a little bit different, but you can see the employee, it's labeled employee, but for this particular exhibit, it should be retiree and those dollar increases. So I'll just give you the one example there to steer your eyes on the school's point of service. a retiree only would be 307.49 would be the annual increase at this 10% increase. So I'll turn it over to Crystal now. I'm happy to answer some questions when she wraps this up, but she can get into some of the details on the rates.
Thank you, David. David covered a lot of the stuff that I'm probably going to talk about. I'm just going to try to point out some key things because he's put a lot of information out there. I want to go back to slide 4, the one we were talking about. So returning to slide 4 on plan year projections, we wanted to point out that the employer contributions, as you can see, why am I not there? Our contributions are projected to increase from $103 million in 2026 to $121.1 million in 2027. That's an increase of $18.1 million or 17.6%. So by comparison, employee contributions are projected to increase from $17.5 million in 2026 to $19.2 million in 2027. And that's an increase of $1.7 million or 9.7%. So these projections are demonstrating that the increase in our employer contributions continues to significantly outpace the increase in employee contributions. And as a percentage of cost, David referred to how the employee was 14%, but when you look at it as a percentage of cost, the employer contribution is about 88% of that total cost amount. And then for employees, it's kind of like 12% of the total cost because our contributions are right now in 27 coming in a little bit higher than the total cost that's being projected. So that's further just demonstrates what we're trying to do with this health fund and what we are trying to provide employees with a competitive compensation plan. David also mentioned the $2.6 million in plan year 2027 that was shown in red on the table. Under the impact on health fund reserves, that does not represent a reliance on the health fund balance and rather reflects a contribution to the health fund resulting from the 2027 gross cost projection decreasing from the level assumed when we budgeted the $121.1 million. And I know a lot of information gets put out there, but that $121.1 million was based on November 2025 claims experience, and so we budgeted at the time we had to do that to create the budget. But that has gone down. So that's why you see that contribution to the health fund of $2.6 million being projected for 2027. So I'm going the wrong way. Why can I go no more? So just to go back to the tables, the initial tables that David covered for the active and retiree rates, I think he did what it says. We just wanted to make sure that you realize that it's reflecting the employee contributions for 2026 plan year and that's what employees are paying right now and retirees, and they are currently paying to a projected 10% increase for plan year 27 for both POS and the CDHP plans across each coverage tier. So that's going to be both on active rates for employees, and I don't know why I keep hitting this wrong button, and also for the retirees. These next two slides illustrate what a projected 10% increase for plan year 2027 would look like on a per pay period basis for active employees and a monthly basis for retired employees. So for active employees enrolled in the POS plan with employee only coverage, the projected increase would be $6.33 per pay period over 20 pay periods. The remaining tiers reflect the corresponding dollar increases. For an active employee enrolled in the CDHP plan with employee-only coverage, the projected increase would be 48 cents per pay period over 20 pay periods. And again, you see the remaining tiers reflecting the corresponding increase under this plan as well. And I'll give you a moment to review that. So this, turning to the retiree rates, for retirees in the POS plan with employee-only coverage, the projected increase would be $25.62 per month over 12 months. And the remaining tiers, again, reflect the corresponding increases for the other coverage tiers. And for retirees enrolled in the CDHP plan with employee-only coverage, the projected increase would be $12.16 per month over 12 months. And again, you see the remaining that reflect the corresponding increases, and I'll give you a moment to review that. So we just wanted to go back and point these things out and drill a little bit down into how this impacts the employee based on this projection. So that concludes our presentation, but we will be glad to answer any questions that you have.
Ms. Rogers.
Thank you. Thank you for the presentation. I appreciate the thoroughness. I think my overall question is this actually sustainable? It seems that 17% increase on the employer side and 10% on the employee side. As we continue, this doesn't seem like it's going to be sustainable. Is there, I guess I want to know, is this something as far as us staying self-insured? Does that make sense? And the reason I'm asking is I understand that we are tied to the city, but we have double the employees. And so I feel like we should have the ability to have direction for our employees because we are covering more than double what the city's covering. And I just don't want it to be that our employees and our school division is spending so much on medical that it's going to start affecting our student services and our ability to even retain employees because our healthcare is expensive. It's very expensive. And I took a quick peek. There are other Hampton Roads school divisions that are not self-employed, and that we're finding that their coverages are better. More affordable. I shouldn't say better, more affordable. And so this is where I really would like Consolidated to look at how can we make this more affordable for ourselves and for our employees going forward, because if the projections are we're going to keep increasing, we're not going to have employees that can afford it. I mean, it's simple as that. I understand how the market is. I understand that that's where we're going, but we have to make it so that our employees can afford it. And this just doesn't seem sustainable. That's just my overall comment. And I mean, not y'all's fault, but that's what I would like, is for Consolidated Benefits to really give us information on what can we do to make this affordable. And if that means not being self-insured and that the city is not self-insured and we bring in other companies that can insure us and it's more sustainable and affordable for our employees, that's what I would like to see.
I'm not the insurance expert, so I want to, if you can talk to like the not being self-insured.
Sure. Happy to. So a couple of points I would make is that right now we're looking at the claims experience distinctly for the school's population and the city's population, and we're projecting and rating accordingly. And you're right, your population is larger. Sometimes that has resulted in a cost per person being higher. Sometimes it's lower. In general, the law of large numbers says that you would expect over the long term a little less volatility the larger the group, and so that finds its way into the projection and hopefully adds some stability. From a funding perspective, the primary differences between self-insurance and fully insured, where the health carrier assumes the risk for that volatility, is that there are some costs that are charged under the fully insured environment that over time put upward pressure on the cost. And those namely are risk premium. So if they're going to assume the risk of gain or loss, they're going to charge a premium. So they embed that in there. There are also state premium taxes, because any fully insured policy is subject to state premium taxes. So that adds a little bit of upward pressure. You don't pay that on anything that's self-funded. Just a small portion of your plan with stop loss is considered insured. So there's a little bit of tax on that. And then you also lose the ability to customize your benefits. There's state mandated benefits that would have to be incorporated in there. So over the long run, again, entities have to be able to withstand some volatility year to year. That's inherent in self-funding. So, but over the long run, you would be expected to save money relative to fully insured by virtue of not paying risk premium to insurance carriers. So they target a loss ratio that's in that 80% range. So that means over the long run, they're hoping to charge for their services, including assumption of risk, in the neighborhood of 20%.
And I think my concern is that if we wait for the long run too long, we're not going to have employees to insure because we're not going to be able to retain them.
Yeah.
And so that's where my concern is. We have to be able to be competitive with all of the other districts around us. And this is making us very uncompetitive.
Right.
And so that's my concern. And I think that even I don't know how to fix this other than can we look at other options?
Yeah.
That's where I'm coming
Yes,
from.
ma'am. That's a very fair request, and we're working with the Consolidated Budget Office Benefits Office to look at alternatives, look at initiatives that we can do to help enable the population to be as healthy as they can be and engage in their screenings and get a relationship with a primary care physician. All of the things that hopefully will improve health outcomes and the quality of life for the employees and their dependents. So duly noted, it is a challenge. These numbers, it's not no consolation, I'm sure, but right now what we are seeing for 2027 across our book of business is increases that are north of the 9+% that you all are seeing. So I know that's no consolation. There's a lot of challenges right now in healthcare. There's a lot of developments, a lot of contributing factors that are driving up the costs. Many of them are helping individuals, treat and manage their conditions, but it is expensive. So I appreciate that feedback.
Thank you so much.
Mr. Culpepper?
Thank you for providing the electronic version via email here. It's hard to follow all those numbers without being able to look at it and without a magnifying glass. Old eyes. I'm still having a hard time following some of these numbers, and I'm trying to keep track from brief to brief about where this is tracking. For the exactly the same thing she's asking about, which is this a sustainable track we're on? So last time you briefed this was February, is that right?
I believe it was in March using 2025 data, so we've added new data.
Okay. I think I'm looking at the newest previous brief from the one I have here, and whether it was February or March that you briefed this, your projected balance at the end of 26 was $18.7 million in the previous brief, right? And now it's $4.3 million. I'm asking this partly to understand where, if both of those projections take into account the same things. And so when we briefed it last time, we, for example, talked about $5.8 million that we were going to inject from our budget into the fund, right? Am I remembering that
That's right. Yep, that's right.
Okay, so do your numbers from the brief today take into account that $5.8 million?
They do not. So I'll let Crystal address that, but we were advised to remove that line item from these exhibits.
Okay.
So as David mentioned, we did remove the $5.8 million that was originally approved in the reversion resolution that was approved by the board. It went into the school reserve account, which is a city account. Following some clarification regarding those funds and when those funds would be released by the city, at this time, those required qualifications are not present. And so due to our efforts to continue to increase the employer contribution, we don't anticipate right now meeting those requirements. So it's to say in a summary that we don't expect the city to release that based on our financial position at this time.
Okay, that's fair. But they did put it in the reserve fund earmarked for this purpose. Is that correct?
It is in that reserve fund right now
Okay.
for that purpose, yes, sir.
That notwithstanding, though, that would, even if I included that in here, that would take us up to $6 million as your projection, which is still $12 million different from last time. I don't see the numbers tracking, from your gross cost and the other contributions tracking for a $12 million discrepancy. That's why I'm a little bit confused.
I apologize, I don't have that previous exhibit.
Okay. I can maybe grab you after then. I can show you
Yes.
what I saved and how it compares here. Maybe you can explain to me
Absolutely.
the discrepancy I'm clearly
Yeah,
missing. Okay.
happy to do that.
All right. Thank you.
Okay, I don't see any further questions. Thank you. Vice Chair Weems is going to read us into closed.
I move that the school board recess into closed session in accordance with exceptions to open meetings law set forth in the Code of Virginia 2.2-3711, Part A, paragraphs 1, 2, 7, 8, 19, and 29 as amended, to deliberate on the following matters. 1, discussion, consideration, or interviews of prospective candidates for employment, assignment, appointment, promotion, performance, demotion, salaries, disciplining, or resignation of specific public officers, appointees, or employees of any public body, and evaluation of a performance of departments or schools of public institutions of higher education where such evaluation necessarily involve discussion of the performance of specific individuals. Any teacher shall be permitted to be present during a closed meeting in which there is a discussion or consideration of a disciplinary matter that involves the teacher and some student, and the student involved in the matter is present, provided that the teacher make a written request to be present to the presiding officer of the appropriate board. Nothing in this subdivision, however, shall be construed to authorize a closed meeting by a local governing body or an elected school board to discuss compensation matters that affect the membership of such body or board collectively. 2, discussion or consideration of admission or disciplinary matters or any other matters that would involve the disclosure of information contained in a scholastic record concerning any student of any public institution of higher education in the Commonwealth or any state school system. However, any such student, legal counsel, and if the student is a minor, the student's parents or legal guardian shall be permitted to be present during the taking of testimony or presentation of evidence at a closed meeting. If such student, parents, or guardians so request in writing, and such request is submitted to the presiding officer of the appropriate board. 7, consultation with legal counsel and briefings by staff members or consultants pertaining to actual or probable litigation, where such consultation or briefing in open meeting would adversely affect the negotiating or litigating posture of the public body. For the purpose of this subdivision, probable litigation means litigation that has been specifically threatened or in which the public body or its legal counsel has a reasonable basis to believe will be commenced by or against a known party. Nothing in this subdivision should be construed to permit the closure of a meeting merely because an attorney representing the public body is in attendance or is consulted on a matter. 8, consultation with legal counsel employed or retained by a public body regarding specific legal matters requiring the provision of legal advice by such counsel. Nothing in this subdivision shall be construed to permit the closure of a meeting merely because an attorney representing the public body is in attendance or is consulted on a matter. 19, discussion of plans to protect public safety as it relates to terrorist activity or specific cybersecurity threats or vulnerabilities, and briefings by staff members, legal counsel, or law enforcement or emergency service officials concerning actions taken to respond to such matters or a related threat to public safety. Discussion of information subject to the exclusion in subdivision 2 or 14 of 2.2-3705.2, where discussion in an open meeting would jeopardize the safety of any person or the security of any facility, building, structure, information technology system, or software program, or discussion of reports or plans related to the security of any governmental facility, building, or structure, or the safety of persons using such facility, building, or structure. 29, discussion of the award of public contract involving the expenditure of public funds, including interviews of bidders or offerers, and discussion of the terms of scope of such contract, where discussion in an open session would adversely affect the bargaining position or negotiating strategy of this public body, namely to discuss A, appointment of citizen members to the school board advisory committees effective July 1st, 2026, B, personnel matters related to VDEO investigation, C, pending student matters, D, determination regarding student discrimination complaint appeal, E, Princess Anne High School CIP project, discussion on RFQ for owner agent and design bill status, F, discussion with legal counsel and staff regarding security matter, G, status of pending litigation or administrative cases, and H, consultation with legal counsel regarding probable litigation and pending litigation matters.
Okay, motion made by Vice Chair Weems, seconded by Ms. Dwyer. Any discussion? Seeing none, I call for the vote to go into closed session.
Madam Chair, we have 9 ayes. The motion did pass for going into closed session.
Whereas the school board of the city of Virginia Beach has convened a closed meeting on this date pursuant to an affirmative recorded vote and in accordance with the provisions of the Virginia Freedom of Information Act. And whereas section 2.2-3712 of the Code of Virginia requires a certification by the school board that such closed meeting was conducted in conformity with Virginia law. Now therefore be it resolved that the school board of the city of Virginia Beach hereby certifies that to the best of each member's knowledge, only public business matters lawfully exempted from open meeting requirements by Virginia law were discussed in the closed meeting to which the certification applies, and only such public business matters as were identified in the motion by which the closed meeting was convened were heard, discussed, or considered.
All right, motion made by Ms. Melnick, seconded by Dr. Green. Any discussion? Seeing none, I call for the vote to certify closed session.
So, Madam Chair, we have 9 ayes. The motion did pass for certification of closed session.
Okay, we will now recess for dinner break and reconvene with our formal session at 6 p.m.
I had assigned this to Mark. He's not here. So you're the next one for next week, but if he doesn't come, will you do the art competition?
There's something very wrong with my neck. Look, there's an issue right